Hey, what's up guys, this is Guy495 here with the comparison video between the iPhone SE versus the iPhone 5S, the phone that I currently use and the phone that I'm about to sell. So this is going to be hopefully the most comprehensive video you'll find on YouTube. I've been looking around to see if there's any other videos like that, but I haven't, so I decided to make one of my own. So in this video, I'll be covering the hardware changes, the internal upgrades, real-life performance, as well as testing out the cameras, and noting out what Apple should have upgraded, but they didn't. So just looking at these two, can't really tell what they are. So if I turn them to the side, what do you think, which one's which? So here on the left is the iPhone 5S. Here on the right is the iPhone SE. So let's just go ahead and start out with what they came with in the boxes. So just to keep everything consistent, on my left is going to be the iPhone 5S, and on the right it's always going to be the iPhone SE. So the artwork for the front of these boxes is slightly different. Instead of showing the icons as they usually do, they has just a picture of a fireworks. And you can see the Apple logo is actually different. Both of them are space gray models, but on the SE, the Apple logo is actually gray. On the 5S, it's actually black. And then of course on the sides, you can see the clear indication of which iPhone model you have. And again, the Apple logo is on the tops. And on the bottom are the specs and also the size capacity of the iPhone, and I chose the highest capacity at the time, both 64 gigabytes. And now for inside the box contents. So opening it up, the first thing you're greeted with is the iPhone itself, and of course since I have already used these, the stickers are not on them. But underneath that you have a little plastic tray, and then with it comes the literature. The packets are slightly different this time, but the stuff is basically the same. You're greeted with a little quick start card, and then you have a little warranty information as well as Apple stickers. Though Apple did kind of cheap us out with no color on the info card for the SE this time. But also if you got the unlocked model like I did for the SE, you'll also find a SIM card tray remover pin right here, which is not found if you did not buy it unlocked. But once you remove the literature, everything else in the box is identical. You got a set of Apple EarPods with microphone in the little carrying case, and a wall adapter and the lightning cable. All of that aside, now let's go ahead and move on to the comparison of the phones themselves. With the devices turned off, you might be hard-pressed to find the differences between the two physically. So on the front, it's pretty much identical. On the back is where it stands out a little bit more. Even though both of these are labeled as space gray, the tint on the 5S is actually a little bit more blue than the one on the SE. Another minor difference is actually the Apple logo. On the SE, it's actually now an inset stainless steel, whereas the 5S was just something that Apple just painted or embellished onto it. Now the chamfered edges on the SE are now matte, same as the rest of the backing, but on the iPhone 5S, it was this mirrored chamfered edge, which was really pretty honestly, but it also picked up a lot of scratches. And now for the most obvious way to tell the difference externally is if it has the SE badging on the back. Also on the SE is the removal of any of the FCC regulations, which is quite nice. It gives it a little bit more of a cleaner look. But besides the back and the slight color difference, you really can't tell the difference between the two phones if the phone is turned off. Unless of course you get the rose gold option for the iPhone SE, which the iPhone 5S did not have. But now let's see what Apple upgraded under the hood. First is the new 12 megapixel camera found on the iPhone SE, which I personally think is probably the #1 reason to upgrade if you have an older iPhone. This thing has also much better autofocus for video, so if you shoot video a lot on your phone, this is definitely a good factor to consider. It also is able to now shoot 4K at 30 frames per second. It also has faster frame rates for slow-mo, and the dynamic range and color saturation and clarity and detail is just much better on the SE than the 5S as shown in these pictures. With more megapixels on the SE, the pictures when zoomed in are much more crisp, and it performs much better in low light conditions as shown here. But where the iPhone SE really shines is in video quality. As I mentioned before, it has continuous autofocus, which is very good. It continuously able to keep my shots in focus, as you can see here. That way I don't need to continuously tap the screen every time I want to focus on my subject. And the iPhone SE has more options for slow-mo. So right now I'm shooting both at 720p, but the iPhone 5S is only shot at 120 frames per second, but the iPhone SE is shot at 240 frames per second. So as you can see, I can drastically slow down my shots while still maintaining the same clarity as I would on my 5S. Now that's the rear camera, but for the front-facing camera, they are identical on both models, except that you can use the now Retina flash on the iPhone SE, where on the iPhone 5S that is omitted. The iPhone SE also has another feature that I pretty much never use, and that is live photos. You can use it to see the before and after right when you take a picture, but it also takes up more space, so I usually leave it off for the most of the part. However, a welcome feature that was added to the iPhone SE is Apple Pay. Now you can double tap your home button to pay electronically using your phone. And then there are the other internal upgrades in the SE that I can't exactly show on camera, which is more and faster LTE bands and the new 802.11ac Wi-Fi for faster connections. And it has a slightly bigger battery, which actually means a lot. I was able to get through 2 days of regular use without charging. And of course, it comes with the new Apple A9 chip with the M9 coprocessor, which is the same as what is found in the iPhone 6s. So just that on paper doesn't really tell you too much, so let's just go ahead and talk about the software and real-world tests. First, let's compare the boot up time. So I'm going to go ahead and turn both of these on at the same time while starting the timer. The iPhone SE finished in just under 25 seconds, and the iPhone 5s took more than double of that time at over a minute and 5 seconds. Now both of these systems are running the latest iOS, which is 10.1.1, and they all are equipped with the same amount of content. Now let's run some benchmarks. I load a speed test, but from this result I didn't really get anything too conclusive, just a very slight variation for the iPhone SE in the upload speed. However, when I ran Geekbench 3 to test the processor, it definitely was very clear who the winner was. The iPhone SE has twice the processing power of that of the iPhone 5S. However, you can't really tell that difference when just navigating through the OS. Swiping left and right and pulling down the notification center and the control panel all seem pretty fluid. There wasn't even a huge difference in Safari tab opening times. Sometimes the iPhone 5S even beat out the iPhone SE. Even YouTube load times are nearly identical. But where you'll definitely start noticing the difference is when you're opening apps and when you're within apps. Opening native Apple apps is generally not too bad, but when you start opening third-party apps, the lag really shows on the iPhone 5S, especially for games like Pokemon Go. And speaking of games, gaming on the iPhone SE is definitely much better than on the 5S, with its much better GPU performance on highly intensive graphical games like Asphalt 8. Ignoring how badly I play at this game, the performance and the graphics on the SE is undoubtedly much better, and I'm able to handle the car much easier on the iPhone SE. Now let's talk about what Apple didn't upgrade but should have for the iPhone SE. The biggest bummer here is the measly 1.2 megapixel camera still found on the iPhone SE as was on the iPhone 5S. Touch ID is still also the same, the first generation, which isn't bad, but it's not nearly as fast as the second gen. And there's no 3D touch, which is not really a big deal to me, but it also doesn't have optical stabilization, which is limited to the Plus models currently. And now the million-dollar question, to upgrade or to not upgrade? Well, if you don't want a bigger smartphone and you want to stick with the iPhone, then yes, this is a no-brainer. I didn't get this purposefully. As you can see, my iPhone 5S is still functionally reasonably well. It was an accident that I had to buy this new phone, but honestly I don't regret buying it. Mainly because of how awesome the new camera is. The autofocus is incredible, and the much better battery life I'm getting out of this phone compared to my own phone is definitely very noticeable. And as with any phone, the battery life decreases drastically as you use it more and more. So even if I bought a brand new iPhone 5S right now, it would outperform the one I have currently. While definitely not the cheapest smartphone, but it's definitely the best compact smartphone without all the processing compromises. Right now you can pick up the 16GB model for $399 or the 64GB model for $449. But do keep in mind that Apple doesn't plan to refresh this phone annually like its main models. However, that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially for budget-conscious people like me. That way you won't be tempted to upgrade every year, if you especially want to stick with this form factor. But this concludes my comparison video between the two phones. I hope you found it helpful. Please give it a like if you did, and consider subscribing if you liked what you see. Thanks for watching, guys.